The desert does not forgive hesitation. It remembers every footprint, every breath drawn in fear, every promise whispered to the wind and broken before dawn. Out here, under a sky stretched wide and merciless, lives were not measured by years but by moments of courage. Before this story begins, before blood darkened the sand and hearts were forced open like old wounds, remember this: if stories like this move you, if they make you feel the dust in your teeth and the fire in your chest, subscribe to our channel and share this tale with friends who still believe stories can change a man. Now listen closely, because this is not a gentle story. The rancher had lived alone so long that silence felt like a second skin. Elias Crow did not remember when words had become unnecessary, when the sound of his own breathing at night was enough company. His ranch lay on the edge of Apache land, a hard stretch of earth where grass fought to live, and cattle learned stubbornness from the men who raised them. Elias was not old, but the West had carved him like weathered stone. His wife lay buried on a hill with no marker but a bent mesquite tree, and his child had followed her into the ground before learning to speak. After that, Elias stopped expecting anything from the world. Then the Apache girl came riding out of the heat shimmer like a spirit pulled from legend. She was wounded. That was the first thing he noticed. Blood darkening the fringe of her buckskin dress, her posture stiff with pain. The second thing was her eyes. They did not plead. They judged. Black and sharp, they cut through him as if weighing his worth in a single glance. Elias reached for his rifle on instinct, then stopped. She was young, maybe 18 or 19, but she carried herself like someone who had already buried too many dead. She slid from her horse and nearly fell. Elias moved without thinking, catching her before she hit the ground. For a moment they stood there, close enough to feel each other's breath. He smelled dust and sage on her and something else, smoke, maybe grief. "Why are you here?" he asked. She looked at him as if the question amused her. "Because I am alive," she said. Her voice was low, steady, accented, but clear. "And because you are not the kind of man who shoots a wounded girl." That angered him more than if she had begged. "You don't know a damn thing about me." Her mouth curved into the faintest smile. "I know enough." He should have sent her away, he knew that. Apache trouble followed Apache people, and Elias Crow had buried enough. But something in her gaze dared him to be the man she believed he could be, and that was a challenge he hadn't felt in years. He brought her into his house. Her name was Naya. She told him that much and nothing more while he cleaned her wound. The bullet had grazed her side, torn flesh but missed bone. She did not cry out, not even when he poured whiskey over the gash. She watched him the whole time, as if studying the way his hands moved. "Why were you shot?" he asked. "Because I ran," she replied. "From who?" She met his eyes. "From men who believe they own what they can take." Elias felt something old and violent stir in his chest. He finished bandaging her and stepped back. "You can rest here tonight. Tomorrow you leave." Naya nodded. "Tomorrow," she agreed, as if tomorrow were a distant, flexible thing. Night fell heavy and silent. Outside, coyotes sang to the moon. Inside, Elias lay awake on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He could feel her presence in the other room like heat from a banked fire. He told himself he was doing this out of decency, nothing more. He had no room left in his life for complications. Before dawn, he woke to the sound of movement. He reached for his gun and stepped into the main room. Naya stood there, fully dressed, her wound bound tight. She was staring at a small wooden box on the shelf, his wife's things. "I did not mean to pry," she said quietly. He swallowed. "Those memories aren't worth stealing." She turned to him then, her face serious. "Memories are all that remain when the world takes everything else." Something about the way she said it broke through his defenses. He poured coffee, handed her a cup. Their fingers brushed, and the contact lingered. "You should go," he said again, weaker this time. She took a sip, then set the cup down. "They will come," she said. "The men who shot me, they hunt women like animals. They do not stop." Elias felt the weight of that truth settle into his bones. "Then keep riding. Don't bring death to my door." Naya stepped closer. Her eyes did not flinch. "If you want to live the rest of your life hiding from what you know is right," she said, "just do it." The word struck him like a slap. She turned away, mounted her horse, and rode out as the sun broke over the horizon. Elias stood there long after the dust settled. The echo of her voice followed him through the morning, through the feeding of cattle, through the endless chores that once filled his days. By noon, riders appeared on the horizon. 3 men, armed, moving with the confidence of those who had never been challenged. Something inside Elias snapped into place. He saddled his horse. The first shot came from the rocks. Elias took one man down before the others even knew where he was. The second charged blindly and fell with a curse on his lips. The third ran. Elias let him go, not out of mercy, but because fear would spread faster than blood. By dusk he found Naya by the river, her horse drinking quietly. She watched him approach, expression unreadable. "You came," she said. He dismounted. "I told you to leave." She tilted her head. "You told yourself to hide." He laughed then, a rough sound torn from a chest that had forgotten how. "Your trouble." "Yes," she agreed simply. That night by the fire she told him everything. Of her sister taken by traitors, of promises broken by white men and red alike, of a world that demanded obedience or blood. Elias listened, and for the first time since his family died, he felt something other than emptiness. Days turned into weeks. The world noticed. Word spread of a rancher who stood with an Apache girl who did not bow. Soldiers came with warnings. Settlers came with threats. Naya stood beside him through it all, fierce and unyielding. One night, as the wind howled and the fire burned low, Elias spoke the words that had been clawing at him. "They will never leave us alone." Naya looked at him steadily. "No." He clenched his fists. "Then this ends one way." She reached out, touched his scarred hand. "If you want to change this world," she said softly, "just do it." At dawn, Elias burned his ranch to the ground. Flames ate wood and memory alike, sending smoke spiraling into the sky. Cattle were driven free. The past was reduced to ash. Settlers watched in disbelief as Elias Crow rode away with the Apache girl, leaving everything behind. They joined her people beyond the red cliffs, where the land rose wild and unforgiving. Elias was tested there, not with words, but with action. He hunted. He bled. He stood his ground when challenged. Slowly, grudgingly, respect followed. But the world does not forgive defiance. The army came in force. Drums echoed across the canyon as soldiers advanced, rifles gleaming. Elias stood beside Naya on the ridge, outnumbered, surrounded. "This is where it ends," he said. Naya shook her head. "No, this is where you decide who you are." The battle was brutal. Smoke and screams filled the air. Elias fought like a man already dead, driven by something stronger than fear. When a bullet tore into his side, he stayed on his feet. When the line faltered, he held it. At the height of the chaos, Naya climbed the ridge and raised her voice, not in a cry, but in a song. Ancient, powerful. It carried over the gunfire, freezing men where they stood. Even the soldiers hesitated, unsettled by something they did not understand. Elias used that moment. He charged not to kill, but to break, to show them the cost of taking. By nightfall, the soldiers retreated, leaving their dead and their certainty behind. Elias collapsed beside the fire that night, blood soaking his shirt. Naya knelt with him, pressing her hands to the wound. "You did the unthinkable," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You told me to." He lived, scarred deeper than before, but alive. The world did not change overnight, but something shifted. Stories spread of a lone rancher who chose a different path, who burned his past and stood for something greater than himself. Yea, hours later, travelers spoke of a man with iron eyes and an Apache woman at his side, guardians of a land that refused to be owned. And when asked why he did it, why he gave up everything, Elias Crow had only one answer. "She told me if I wanted to," he'd say, voice quiet as the desert at dawn, "just do it." Before the dust of the first battle ever truly settled, before the echoes of gunfire faded from the red cliffs, remember this: stories like this survive only because you carry them forward. If this journey grips your heart, subscribe to our channel, share this story with your friends, and keep these voices alive. Now listen, because what came next was heavier, darker, and far more dangerous than anything Elias Crow had faced before. The morning after the soldiers retreated, The land smelled of smoke and iron. Blood had soaked into the sand, and the canyon held the silence of a place that had witnessed too much. Elias woke to pain so sharp it stole his breath. Every movement burned. For a moment he thought he was back on his ranch, half dead from grief, waiting for nothing. Then he heard the low murmur of Apache voices and felt a cool hand against his forehead. Naya sat beside him, her face drawn but calm. She had not slept. None of them had. Around them the people moved quietly, tending wounds, mourning the dead without ceremony. This was not victory, it was survival. "You should be dead," Elias muttered. Naya's lips curved faintly. "So should many men who still walk." "Shh," he replied. "The world is careless that way." He tried to sit up and failed. His vision swam. "How bad?" She pressed her hand gently to his side. "Bad enough to remind you that you are human, not bad enough to take you." He exhaled slowly. Somewhere nearby a child cried. Somewhere else a woman sang a mourning song so soft it barely existed. Elias closed his eyes. He had burned his old life to ash, and now he lay among people whose pain stretched back generations. There was no turning back. Days passed. His wound closed slowly, stubborn as the man himself. During those days he learned the weight of what he had done. He was no longer a rancher standing alone against the world. He was now part of something the government feared and the settlers hated. Some of the Apache looked at him with gratitude, others with suspicion. A white man did not simply belong because he bled. One evening, an elder named Tokala sat beside him. The old man's hair was silver, his face carved by time and loss. "You burned your home," Tokala said. "Yes. You killed for us. Yes. That does not make you one of us." Elias nodded. "I know." Tokala studied him for a long time. "Why did you stay?" Elias thought of his wife's grave, of the emptiness that had eaten him alive, of Naya's voice cutting through his excuses. "Because running didn't save me," he said. Tokala grunted. "We will see." The army did not return right away. That was worse. Silence meant planning. Scouts brought news of orts reinforcing, of bounty hunters sniffing around like wolves. Elias could feel the tension tightening day by day. He watched Naya move among her people, strong, unbowed, carrying grief without letting it hollow her. He had never seen strength like hers. One night, as they sat apart from the others, Elias spoke what had been haunting him. "They won't stop. You know that." Naya stared into the fire. "No, they will come with more men. More guns, yes." He clenched his jaw. "Then this ends with all of you dead." She turned to him sharply. "No." He met her gaze. "Then tell me what I'm missing." For the first time since he'd met her, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "You think like a man with nothing left to lose," she said. "That is dangerous. I already lost everything." She shook her head. "You lost what was taken, not what you chose." The words sank deep. Elias had chosen this fight, chosen to burn his past. That meant something. The decision came with the next sunrise. Scouts returned with news that chilled the camp. Settlers had captured 3 Apache women near the river. One of them was Naya's cousin. The message was clear: come quietly or watch them die. The camp erupted in fury. Young warriors demanded blood. Elders argued for patience. Elias felt the old rage surge, hot and reckless. "They want us to attack," he said. "They want an excuse." Naya's hands trembled despite her control. "They already have excuses." Elias stood slowly, ignoring the pie. Then we don't give them the fight they expect." They looked at him, some with disbelief, some with anger. "I know these men," Elias continued. "They aren't brave. They're cruel. They'll break if they think they're losing control." Tokala narrowed his eyes. "Speak." Elias laid out a plan that would have been madness weeks earlier. They would not charge. They would not hide. They would ride openly into the settlement, unarmed except for knives. He would go first. "You will be killed," one warrior spat. Elias met his glare. "Maybe, but they won't kill me fast. And while they hesitate, you take the women." Naya grabbed his arm. "No." He looked at her. "If you want them back," he said softly, "just do it." The phrase hit her like a blade. For a long moment she said nothing, then she nodded once. They rode at dusk, Elias at the front, hands empty, face hard. Settlers gathered as he entered the town, murmurs rising like flies. Guns were drawn. He did not stop. "I'm here for the women," he called out, "not to fight." A man laughed. Another spat. Someone raised a rifle. "You don't get to demand anything," the leader sneered. Elias stepped closer. "You already lost," he said. "You just don't know it yet." Behind the buildings, shadows moved, Apache warriors silent as breath slipped through the town. The first scream cut the air, then another. Chaos erupted. Elias was struck, dragged to his knees, fists slamming into his ribs. He tasted blood and laughed through Brock in teeth. By the time the settlers realized what was happening, it was over. The women were gone. The Apache vanished into the dark like ghosts. They left Elias behind. He woke in a cell, chained, half-conscious. Days passed. He was beaten, starved, mocked. Word spread fast. A white man who betrayed his own. A traitor. One night, as pain blurred the edges of his vision, a familiar voice reached him. "You should have died." Naya stood outside the bars, eyes blazing. She had cut her hair short, war paint streaked across her face. "You came back," he rasped. She unlocked the cell. "You are infuriating." He laughed weakly. "I've been told." They rode through the night, chased by gunfire that fell short. Elias collapsed again once they reached the canyon. This time he nearly didn't wake. When he did, he found himself under the open sky, Naya beside him, her hand gripping his as if daring death to argue. "Why?" he whispered. "Why keep saving me?" Her voice broke. "Because you chose us." Seasons turned. The world kept pressing in, but something had changed. Settlers avoided the canyons. Soldiers hesitated. Stories grew larger than truth, and fear did what bullets could not. Elias healed, slower now, older in spirit. He and Naya stood together, not as legend, but as warning. That land could not be owned without consequence. Years later, when gray crept into Elias's beard and scars ached with the cold, he asked her if she ever regretted that first day. Naya looked out over the red cliffs, the land alive beneath the sun. "No," she said, "because one man listened." Elias smiled. He had been a rancher once. He had been nothing. Now he was something dangerous, and the desert remembered him.